Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. It is a busy Wednesday morning. There is no more time to waste, so let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not in the normal Torres estate, the normal Torres studio. I'm on the road. I'm going to be getting a few interviews tomorrow, a little bit of a top secret trip. I only bring it up a couple of interviews that will be in your feeds here in the coming days. But why I felt like I needed to record here late on Tuesday night into Wednesday after I've been traveling all day, it's because we got a pretty notable piece of college basketball news as Boogie Fland, who I think got a little bit of a raw deal in his 1 year at Arkansas. He is a player that, of course, was very good early. The team struggled. He gets hurt. The team gets hot. He comes back. Anyway, former McDonald's All-American, played 1 year at Arkansas. But what was notable about him was that after the season, he both entered the NBA draft and then right before the deadline decided to put his name in the portal just in case. It was sold as he's all in on the NBA draft. Well, apparently not, because on Tuesday, as I was traveling, I apologize I couldn't get this to you earlier, but Boogie Fland withdraws his name from the NBA draft. He is not coming back to Arkansas. And I think all of a sudden here in the middle of May, you now have a very marquee player who will be playing college basketball next year. Now, I think I kind of know where he's going to go. We'll discuss that in a minute. But let's go ahead and dive into this situation overall. First of all, Boogie Fland, I actually think he's a very good player that got a little bit of a bad rap. Okay, now listen, if you're an Arkansas fan and you saw a lot of losses early and you were frustrated and he got hurt and you want to sit there and say, listen, the team took off without him, I shed no tears for that, whatever. I get it. But what I will also say is that before Boogie Fland got hurt, he suffered a wrist injury in, I think, the 5th or 6th game of the SEC slate this past season. Before Boogie Fland got hurt, it is noteworthy that he was literally statistically putting up one of the best seasons a freshman guard ever has in the SEC, okay? This was a kid that when he got hurt in mid-January was averaging about 16 points per game, almost 6 assists per game. And the stats back it up. He was leading all freshmen in college basketball in assists. He was leading all freshmen in college basketball in assist to turnover ratio, 16 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, or 6 assists per game as a true freshman in college basketball. By the way, I've said it a couple times. I give him credit as well. He did not have to come back late in the season. Not only did he not have to come back, he probably justifiably could have said, I'm not coming back because I'm not 100% and it could hurt my draft stock. But he decides to come back. He plays in Arkansas's NCAA tournament games, and I thought he actually was a very valuable role player for them as they made the Sweet 16. Bring it up because, as I said, after the season ends, he declares for the NBA draft. He actually declared at the Final Four. Like, I remember we were doing a live show from the arena when Boogie Fland declared, and we just thought, okay, this is the end of the era. We, Arkansas fans appreciate whatever. But then, right at the NBA draft deadline, or the transfer portal deadline, I believe it was April 22nd was the last day you could put your name in the transfer portal. He ended up putting his name in the portal. And I think, listen, like I said a minute ago, it was sold as, hey, he's fully locked in on the NBA draft. But listen, I get a lot of stuff right. But I told you that day, I said, I expect him to play college basketball next season. And the reason why is pretty straightforward. It is because, listen, I think, first of all, everybody goes into the NBA draft process with the intention of staying in. Everybody wants to believe that they're good enough, that they're ready enough, that the NBA is knocking down doors to bring them in. And if you're Cooper Flagg, that's the case. And if you're Dylan Harper, that's the case. And if you're Con Knipple, that's the case. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, for just about everybody else, it isn't that simple. And what has made it more complicated is the amount of money that players can get with NIL in college basketball, okay? And so I just bring it up because now NIL has changed everything. Listen, we all saw the report that Boogie Fland was going to get $7 million from Florida. He's not getting $7 million. There's no player that is getting $7 million from a school to play college basketball next year. Now, look, could Cam Boozer at Duke, could AJ DeBonsa, could some of these guys make more than that with off-the-court endorsements, shoe deals, etc.? Yes, but nobody's getting $7 million. But what I said about Boogie Fland is, listen, I think he is a very good college basketball player that, at least right now, I don't think is necessarily going to be a great NBA player, at least not right away. Measured at the NBA Combine at 6'2", so that's probably 6'3" in sneakers. That's on the smaller side. You watch these NBA playoffs. Think about how big these guards are. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 6'5", 6'6". Jamal Murray, 6'4", 6'5". I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Brunson's small, but there aren't very many Jalen Brunsons. Most of these guys are 6'5", 6'6", even at the guard spot. And with Boogie Fland, I said, look, I think he is a decent NBA draft prospect, but he's probably looking at being a second-round pick. And unless you really hate school, if you're going to be a second-round pick with 3 years of eligibility left, it doesn't make sense not to come back to college basketball. You will make more money playing in college next year in a lot of cases than you will as a pro, and certainly you're setting yourself up better for long-term success. You go pro at 19 years old after 1 year of college basketball, you're a second-round pick. It's an uphill battle from there. At the same time, if you come back to college basketball, one, you are going to be very handsomely paid, and two, you're going to be able to develop at your own pace. You don't have to rush. If you come back and you're good enough, you could go from the 36th pick in the draft to the 17th pick in the draft. And then all of a sudden, you got that 4-year fully guaranteed contract. You don't have to worry about what if I fall to the second round. And so with Boogie Fland, I always said it didn't make sense for me for him to stay in the draft unless he really hated school, really wanted to get his pro career started. So he's coming back. Now the big question is where? First of all, I'll say this. We can eliminate Arkansas, okay? And I said this at the time, and a lot of people were kind of surprised that I said it. Listen, Arkansas is full at the guard spot. And again, this is the new reality. It's funny. Every Friday, I go on radio with Phil Elson and Matt Jones down in Arkansas. Matt Jones, the former Arkansas football and basketball player. And we talked about this. This is the high-stakes risk of recruiting the kinds of players that John Calipari does. You bring in a Boogie Fland, you only expect to have him for 1 year. And so when you go out on the recruiting trail the next year, you know you have to replace him. So John Calipari, assuming he was only going to have Boogie Fland for 1 year, recruits Malik Thomas, gets a commit, recruits Darius Acuff, gets a commit. And then all of a sudden, Boogie Fland decides he wants to go back to college basketball. There's not really a spot for him because with DJ Wagner, you have 3 guys, DJ Wagner, Malik Thomas, Darius Acuff, who are best with the ball in their hands. There's really not a spot for Boogie Fland. Like I said, I thought he was a good soldier during the NCAA tournament. I give him credit for coming back. And so he's got to go somewhere where he knows he can play, where he knows there's a role. And this is also part of the reason why I thought he was going to come back. I've been saying this since probably like the middle of March, is that, or maybe not the middle, but the end of March when the portal opened. I said the supply of really good players does not meet the demand that teams need. And so I said, if Boogie Fland wants to come back to college basketball, somebody is going to pay him a lot because teams just need really good players even this late in the process. So the question now becomes, where will Boogie Fland land? And to me, I actually think the answer is relatively simple. I think right now, the favorite has to be considered the Florida Gators. And yes, again, to be clear, there was a report that Boogie Fland was going to get $7 million to go to Florida. He is not getting $7 million. He is not getting anywhere close from Florida. I remember Denzel Aberdeen, who was part of their national championship team, left because basically Kentucky was going to double the amount of money that he could get by playing college basketball. But I'll also say a couple things. Boogie Fland is really good. Todd Golden, like I've said all along, he's gotten that sweet, sweet taste of standing on that trophy not panel, but you know what I'm saying. On standing on the watching one shining moment, holding up that trophy on Monday night. He don't want to go back to being 9th place in the SEC. And so I've always believed that at some point he was going to figure out a way to get more talent into that program, specifically at the guard spot. Xavier Lee, the kid from Princeton, is nice. I don't think he's the kind of kid that you can assume is going to come into the SEC and just take over. And so you need guards that can take over. You're losing Walter Clayton, you're losing Elijah Martin, you're losing Will Richard. And so I've always believed that they were going to get another guard. Now, the only other real high-quality guard, take out P.J. Haggerty, who I do think will end up at NC State, the only other high-quality guard that's really out there is Desmond Claude. And Desmond Claude, for a while, it was believed that he was favored to land at Florida, only he basically eliminated Florida from his recruitment in the last couple days. He's down to basically Ole Miss, Gonzaga, and one or two other schools. And so you look at Florida, they're not going into the season next year with the roster that they have. And so, yes, do I think Florida coming into the offseason had one of the more robust NIL situations? I don't. I think Todd Golden won a national championship, and now he's going to his boosters and saying, look, did you enjoy this? Did you enjoy playing on the last weekend of the season? Well, I need some more money to make sure that we are staying at the level that we are right now. My guess is that over the last couple weeks, he has raised that money. And I think Boogie Fland is the center of his attention, the focal point of his recruitment. And I think this recruitment could end pretty quickly because at the end of the day, first of all, Boogie Fland, couple things. If you think Boogie Fland's college recruitment is starting the day that he leaves the portal, you're out of your mind. That's just not the case. His agent, ironically, Mike Miller. Now, I saw Jeff Goodman put this out. I like Jeff, so this isn't a knock on Jeff. But I saw Jeff Goodman put out, well, Mike Miller is a Florida Gator. That has nothing to do with it. If Mike Miller played at, Oregon State, Boogie Fland ain't going to Oregon State. It just so happens that Florida is a school that needs a dude right now like Boogie Fland. And so because of it, I think Florida makes a lot of sense. They will be able to come up with the money. They need a player like Boogie Fland. And I think most importantly, I think that's a good landing spot for Boogie Fland as well. Todd Golden is a great, great, great young coach. And so you go there, you're going to have the ball in your hands along with Xavier Lee. You're going to be playing for a coach that knows what he's doing. I think you'll be in better position to get drafted at this time next year than you were this year. And so, like I said, I think Florida makes the most sense. They need guys still late in the process. And I think the opposite is true as well. I think most of these other places are filled at the guard spot. Arkansas is filled at the guard spot. Kentucky's filled at the guard spot. By the way, I should mention, I know when he first entered the portal on April 22nd, I said I thought St. John's could be a factor. I think St. John's is done. They might add depth pieces, but they have Ian Jackson. They added Dylan Darling from Idaho State. I don't think St. John's will really be a factor. So to me, my guess would be Florida. I would probably put Ole Miss in there as well. Ole Miss is still recruiting Desmond Claude, as I said. And my assumption is that if somehow, some way they did not end up at Desmond Claude, they are desperate for probably one more player as well. And so I would think that if they can't get Desmond Claude, that it would make a lot of sense for Ole Miss to then turn their attention to Boogie Fland. But like I said, I think this is going to come down pretty quick. As I said, Boogie Fland isn't waiting until he leaves the portal or leaving the NBA draft process to start the portal recruitment. His agents have been working behind the scenes. Who needs a player? Where are the landing spots? Whatever. And I think the opposite is true as well. If you don't feel good about where you're going to go, this is your career. This is your future. You got to make sure you know where you're going. You can't just enter the portal all willy-nilly without a plan. So my assumption is I think he's going to be a Florida Gator. I think it happens pretty quick. We'll probably do our next live show Thursday night. I don't think that it would stun me. I mean, we could do one Wednesday. I don't know. But I don't think that it would stun me if by the time we get on air Thursday night, Boogie Fland is a Florida Gator. But my guess is this recruitment happens pretty quick. Listen, I think other schools are going to call and try to get in the mix. But again, I think they've been calling and trying to get in the mix for a while. Boogie Fland, I believe, will be a Florida Gator. It'll be worth watching. But I'll say this, and we have all, fall to preview the season and to get ahead on stuff. But I think he'll be really good at Florida. And by the way, I'll say this. I had Florida as a fringe top 25 team in my most recent way too early top 25. They add Boogie Fland. I think they're right back in the top 15 or so, right back in the mix in the SEC.